Welcome, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. This is the You Are a Severance podcast with myself, Callie Thomas, and my co-host, Rodnesha Green.
What it do? Happy Black History Month!
Happy Black History Month! Despite what Orange Man says, it is still a thing. Anyway, we are here today to discuss Season 2, Episode 3, Who is Alive? So, before we get into this summary for this episode, in this episode, we got introduced to a little bit more of the incentives, the perks for our innies, which, sidebar, I was not confident was going to actually happen, but it's here.
I don't know that many of us were confident. That's fair, I feel.
Right. So before we get into the episode, we are going to have a little discussion. Rodnesha has posed a very good question. Let's say we ran the severed floor. What do we think would be some good new perks to incentivize these innies?
Do you need some time to think? I have actually thought about this, which is why I posted. I was like, ever since, and I think even before they brought in the new ones, once we found out what some of the previous ones were, I was like, egg bars and melon bars and finger traps and caricatures. I was like, okay, I get they're underexposed, but I feel like we can do a little bit better than that to incentivize our workers, right? I know we're not trying to have them know too much, praise Kier, but I don't know. I just feel like there's a few other additional things that we could do to get things a little more hype.
Okay.
I will say most of mine really and truly is rooted in just like my childhood memories of like elementary school and what excited me about like the things that you would get in elementary school, right? So the most basic one would be pizza day.
Yeah, makes sense.
Do we not remember how exciting it was to have a pizza party at the end of the month for like everybody, you know, staying in whatever your chart system was for behavior, like everyone's behavior chart being cool, or everyone made X amount on the test, or we all turned in our project, or whatever.
The reading log.
Yes.
Pizza.
Oh yeah.
Thing.
See? And it's simple because, you know, we like food at Lumen, but not like super challenging food, but like exciting enough. And I feel like pizza falls within that range.
Related to that, as soon as you started talking about school, I was like, oh, like ice cream social.
Ice cream social. Ice cream social. You can make your own sundae. You can do banana splits.
Floats.
Root beer float, Coke float. Orange creamsicle float. So again, you just got to think, if we're treating these people like children, what easily excites children, but isn't too much, but it's just enough. I think an ice cream social would be good. Another one I had on my list was petting zoo.
Oh, petting zoo.
Turn Mammalia Nurturable into petting zoo day.
Oh my goodness. I don't know how the caretakers of the goats would feel about that.
Well, you know, we'll have to have some conversations about how this is going to go, but we run the severed floor. So it's like, listen, it's this they don't or the really break room choice. Or whatever we're doing now.
Whatever. Yeah.
So just saying, like, it's just one day a quarter or whatever. And I don't know if petting zoo, it could be individualized. It could be a team thing.
Yeah.
Also, I will say some of my incentives do involve team incentives, as we discussed in previous episodes, how there are no team incentives. And I do think that is importante. So yeah, petting zoo day. Who doesn't love getting to sit and pet animals?
Yeah.
Goats, sheep. What are the other things you usually have? A llama.
A llama. There's always a llama. They spit, they bite. But you know, it's a little bit exciting. Will it, won't it? Yeah. It's a little dangerous.
Am I the one that'll be cool with, or am I not? I don't know. You got the ponies, right? The little ponies.
Yeah, pony rides.
With the petting zoo, I also was like, or it could be like, you know, puppy day or kitten, you know, like on the BuzzFeed videos where you just get to have a puppy party.
I would love that. I want a puppy party.
Imagine you work and you get your stuff together and then they say, Miss G, follow me. And you go to a room full of puppies and they're like, you have 1 hour. I feel like, yes,
puppies.
And then it could be adaptable for people's allergies or their pet preferences. If you have birds, they can have a bird room, though that sounds chaotic. I like birds, but maybe if it were just one bird, I'd be okay with just one bird I get to hang out with in the bird room, but I don't need a whole room full of birds. That sounds wild.
That's so funny.
Puppy party, give it to me. Oh, I'd be working hard for that. Do you have another one?
Well, I was also thinking about just like the prizes that were for our different fundraising events.
Okay.
And the one big thing for like the top sellers or like the top class would
Mm-hmm.
be like a limo ride somewhere. And that was a big thing.
Ah,
Maybe the like big prize would be kind of an OTC type of situation. And they do take them off campus just for like an hour, even if they just take them like into the woods, not in a creepy way, but just like, hey, here's some real nature, not our fake nature
fake nature.
indoors. That
Okay.
I feel like that would be a really big incentive.
Okay, so along that line, I had indoor carnival, another fun thing that you
Ooh,
had at school as a kid.
yes, yes.
Only it'd be indoor Carnival, and we know that
Uh,
Carnival used to be
that
a
was a
thing,
thing. That was a thing from Cowbell's slash Selvig's
so
shrine.
we bring it back. That was one of my team incentive ones. I was like, ooh, winning indoor
Hmm.
carnival day where the whole team, if we all make a quota, whole team gets to go have a carnival day inside and
Yeah,
set up little popcorn stands.
that's
And
fun.
imagine if you were promised that once a
Hmm.
quarter.
Right.
I don't know. I'd be like, okay, I want to go to carnival.
You know what? To keep it fun and fresh, it could just rotate through different things. Like the
That's
end
true.
of the quarter event is like a casino night or
Mm-hmm.
a, or the carnival or, different themes. I
Mm.
imagine something like the music dance experience cart rolling in
Okay.
it, but it has like costumes to match what the event is, and then you can like put on a top hat and a corsage or whatever for whatever it is. I think they would really enjoy that.
I think you're right. The other one I had, which is just silly because of things that I watch, is it cake day?
Oh, is it
And
cake?
you just bring things into the office and it's like, is it cake?
I love that show.
I'm like, that's such a big thing right now. It's like, imagine just like you go to your computer and it's like, numbers or a cake. Praise Kier.
Oh,
So
praise
that
Kier.
one feels like a fun one to me as well. So yeah, I don't know. Do you anything else? Again, I could go on.
No, I think I just feel like you and I would be able to motivate the Innies a lot better than what Lumen is
I
currently
think
doing.
this is why, not to get political, but I think this is why DEI initiatives are beneficial because diverse perspectives offer diverse opportunities. And I'm
Yes.
just saying we could all win here, is all I'm saying.
Word.
Okay, well, that was all we wanted to share. If you guys out there listening also have some fun ideas of what would be good incentives or perks to offer in the tier system for MDR or anyone on the severed floor, please share. We'd love to hear what else you might think would be worthwhile.
Right.
Okay, well, I guess let's move on. Let's get it popping. All right, guys, are you ready for your summary for this week's episode? Who is alive?
Let's do it.
All right, for Innie Mark, the mission is clear. Find Miss Casey and free her at all costs. An ignited Mark has found new purpose to him being on the severed floor and has enlisted the help of MDR to get the job done. However, not everyone shares the same vision. For Dylan, the mission is clear. Find out if there's any way he can reconnect with his Audie's life once again. And while Irving is willing to return to the scene of his lost love in order to help Mark, he too has his own mission, which is to find the black elevator that haunts both him and his Audie. Along the way, we stumble across many new sightings, recanonicalized paintings, rolling hills with goats aplenty, Innie visitation spaces, and a little known hallway for exports. On the outside, a concerned Miss Cowbell takes a road trip to gain some perspective. Rickon gets a Kier-tastic offer he can't refuse, and Devin and Mark form a plan to play retinal phone tag. But in the end, there's only one way to ensure communication with one's Innie, and Ragabi may have just found a way to get Mark to finally pull the trigger. And that is your summary.
Ooh, it's a
Ooh.
goodie. I don't know about you, but I like was standing up in front of my TV a lot during this episode, like pointing
I
and like cheering.
we're gonna get to it, but so many things happened this episode that I was like, wait, we're already here? Wait,
Yeah.
this is happening already now? Oh,
Hmm.
oh, oh, I'm not ready. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So let's get into this cast. Guest stars for this episode. We have Merritt Weaver playing Gretchen G, Gwendolyn Christie as Lorne, which I don't think we ever actually hear her name this episode,
No.
but that's the name of the character, Lorne.
Thank you, IMDb.
And then Sydney Cole Alexander as Natalie and Karen Aldridge as Asal Ragabi. Our co-stars are Claudia Robinson as Felicia. I'm so happy she's back. Antula Katsimatides as Florence. Brian Rock as Wyatt, Jarrett Johnston as Goatman, Blaze James Gordon as Jim George, Irish Knight Gorman as Merrick George, Mark Kenneth Smaltz as Judd, and Yul Vasquez as the voice of Petey. Oh, the kids are played by actual brothers.
Brothers.
Nice. Anyway, this episode was written by Wei Ning Yu and directed by Ben Stiller.
Ooh, oh, okay. Let me prepare myself because we're here. We're talking about it. It's happening.
Get into it.
I'm glad they gave us a gentle, easy cold
I said the
opener,
same
although
thing.
there are things even in this. Well, guys, you know what time it is. Let's get into it. The scene opens to a snowy rural highway with a lone white car parked off to the side. A large commercial box truck rushes past, honking, and we see a startled Miss Cowbell rise from sleep. She lifts her seat back, wipes down the glass windows, and looks at something in the passenger seat. She looks a bit concerned as she angles down, but then shakes it off and pops in a cassette tape. It plays the song Love Spreads by the Stone Roses, and she proceeds to begin her drive. Meanwhile, Mark grabs a stopwatch from his dresser and heads to work. We see him put on his badge and start a timer. He then runs towards the building and hurries inside. He checks his watch as he waits at reception. Time reads 1 minute, 3 seconds. Upon admission, he rushes down the stairs to the separate floor and checks his watch again. We cut to him at his locker where he stops the timer at 1 minute and 42 seconds and begins to count as Judd wands him down. As he descends down to the separate floor, he continues counting 35, 36, 37, as Innie Mark takes over. And that is our cold open.
Great impression. Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mark being switched on, off, however way you look at it.
I wasn't sure when I wrote it. I was like, am I going to do it? Yeah, I'm going to do it.
And then did he wake up like Evan, like finishing his word?
He definitely was kind of like, well, what was I? Like he almost was like, was I doing something?
Right. That's so funny. So thoughts?
So, I mean, we're back to the simple kind of true cold open, not too long. I think my initial thoughts were, well, first off, when we were at the Cowbell scene, before they even showed it was her, I was like, is that Cowbell's car parked? What the heck is she doing? Parked on the road.
Yeah. Ain't nobody around her.
And then I was like, where is she? That whole thing was weird. And then when we get to the Mark scene, my initial thought was like, what's happening? Why are we timing?
Yeah, I was like, wait, why is he running? What is he? What's the hurry?
Right. I was like, what? It was so confusing. We'll come back to it. So with the Cowbell scene.
Okay. I was like, I'm not even going to bother looking up the song because I know Rodnesha is on it.
Yeah. Pulled it up, Shazammed it. And I was like, okay, so this song is called Love Spreads by the Stone Roses. I was like, I don't know who they are. Never heard of them. Don't know them. And of course, I go to look up the band and see who they are. So it's a 90s band. I was kind of surprised. And the song was on an album called Second Coming, and it was released in 1994. This song in particular, my understanding is that it was written based on a book that someone in the group read by an author named Rosalind Miles called Women's History of the World. And then the book itself is about like how women have been sidelined, particularly in religious narrative.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, okay, let me backtrack. The lyrics to the song, I kind of was going through some of it. And it says, love spreads her arms, waits there for the nails. I forgive you, boy, I will prevail. Too much to take, some cross to bear. I'm hiding in the trees with a picnic. She's over there. Yeah. She didn't scream. She didn't make a sound. I forgive you, boy, but don't leave town. Cold black skin, naked in the rain. Hammer flash in the lightning. They're hurting her again. Let me put you in the picture. Let me show you what I mean. The Messiah is my sister. Ain't no king, man. She's a queen. Let me put you in the picture. Let me show you what I mean. The Messiah is my sister. Ain't no king, man. She's my queen. So when I read that, I was like, who wrote this? And then when I saw it was like a white alt rock band, I was like, what is happening?
What is happening?
Because I'm like, they're talking about like black skin and she's a queen and what is going on? So again, a lot of it was rooted in the book. And I guess the song was supposed to be presupposing that God is a woman and in fact a black woman, and also contrasting how black women tend to take like the slings and arrows of life and just like keep it moving.
Okay.
And I literally was like, whoa. And this is before we get into anything else in this episode, which seems a little more blackety black than normal, right?
Right.
So we started off with this song, and I already was just thinking to myself, okay, so Cowbell's listening to this, and how does this tie to Cowbell? I mean, in a way, I'm sure she's thinking like, I'm the true messiah of Lumen and Kier. I'm taking all these slings on my back, but I'm pushing ahead because that's what I do, right?
Right.
But then, of course, there's the added layer of what the song's true context is in reference to Black women, kind of reframing the message that you get put in your face with what like reality kind of shows us. Many, many layers, right? Many, many layers.
Ooh, who's the music supervisor? What?
Right? Right?
Flowers.
Whoever is the music supervisor, the choices,
Ooh.
these are not accidental choices. Not that any music put in a film or show is, but
right.
You know, sometimes you just do stuff because it's a vibe, it's nice. Sometimes it's thematic, but like again, the layers on layers on layers with this.
Yes.
I was like, I'm glad I dug. I'm glad I dug.
Yeah, I'm glad you did too, because what?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's in a nutshell what I found. So if you guys want to go ahead and look into the song, if you already know it, you might already know this history and the band, what they're about, what the song's about. But if you don't, check out the song, check out the lyrics, check out women's history of the world. I kind of want to read it, to be honest. I'm a little curious.
Right. Interesting.
So that's what I got from the Cowbell scene.
Wow.
That was what rang out the most for me, besides her just being in the middle of this white blizzard desert, trying to figure out where the heck she is and where she's going.
Right. And I'm over here just like, she slept in her car in the snow. I know she cold.
And you have to wonder, because obviously this is after she's left her place by Mark, right? She just took off and just started driving. Did she know where she was going? Is she fleeing? Is she escaping? Because, you know, we had the conversation last episode of, do we know if she's accepted the job or not accepted the job? Right. Is she going to take a second to kind of find herself?
And if she didn't accept it, are they going to come after her like Peggy Kincaid, Peggy K in the Lexington letter?
So yeah, so seeing her on the road and having slept overnight in the middle of nowhere, I was like, oh, is she fleeing?
Yeah.
Again, I wasn't sure if that was 100% the case, but I just was like, this is weird. This is, I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing, but I got to get out of here type of behavior. So
yeah,
a lot with just a little.
Yeah.
As they do on this show quite often.
Very much so.
Oh, also didn't mention the fact that we don't see what the heck she's looking at in the passenger
Right. She looks down at the passenger seat, but we don't see what she's looking at yet.
But did you already know? I already knew what the heck she was looking at.
Oh, see, I didn't know. I didn't know if it was going to be a map or
I
knew, or it really could have been anything.
I knew what it was before they even showed it. I was like, I know exactly what's in that seat.
That's
and
so
it's
funny.
Weird. We'll get to that later. But yeah, I thought you would have picked up on it. It was the way she looked and the way she kind of had that moment of just like kind of detached staring.
I think I assumed it was going to be something from her past and something related to Kier, like something from that like shrine that she had, but I wasn't sure, you know, what. I was just like, she's motivated by whatever is something in that scene. But, yeah.
Okay, now let's truly go on to Mark. So we go from static, snowy, we're stalled out and working our way into motion to Mark, who is like motivated at jump. And this is weird for outing Mark, because when have we ever see him just like fully awake in the morning, perked up?
Get in there. Yeah.
We've never seen his nightstand, or I don't know if we've even seen his bedroom before, but
yeah, that was definitely a new picture to us of Gemma.
Yeah. And like, you know, he's got the watch and I don't know, everything was very like fixed and in place. And I was like, that's interesting. A little different from what I guess I would expect with Mark, just from being mostly in a drunken stupor a lot of the time. And then, you know, we're so used to the car scenes of him parked outside of Lumen, him boo-hooing. And he's just like determined, okay, got this watch, go.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why is he running? Is he just happy to go to work today? What's happening? But then once he got to reception, it was just like antsy. I was like, oh, we're timing. I don't know why we're timing ourselves.
Yes. And when I realized he was timing, I was like, does he have to park where he parks? Why couldn't he park closer?
That's actually a good point.
He's like so far out in that parking lot.
Unless maybe they do have assigned parking. But
yeah, I'm wondering. Because it's that would be another way also they can control the outings not running into each other, because they don't want them to interact.
That makes sense, because he is pretty far back. So yeah, they probably do. So yeah, once he gets down there and we realize, okay, he's definitely trying to time whatever his whole like car to elevator trek is. And I'm really at that point trying to figure out what the heck could he possibly be trying to plan. We already know you can't sneak notes. What would require speed to get a message in or out or whatever you're trying to do? I don't know. I couldn't figure it out at that point. I was not.
Oh, not at all.
All right, let's move on.
So next we jump to inside MDR, and Mark makes copies of a sketch of Miss Casey and he gives directives to the team of their plan, right? So he tells Dylan that he's going to hit the new break room in search of other departments, and Irving is going to go back to O&D while he and Helly go find the goat man and if there's any other goat people. A very dodgy Dylan says that he'll get to it, but he's found a good groove and he promises to go later. And it's a little odd that he is like really focused on the work because clearly nobody else is. And then Irving is concerned about going to O&D, understandably, but a very empathetic Helly clutches Irving's hand and says, "We've got you." And Irv smiles and he has a bit of hope and he says, "Thanks, Helly." Then she and Mark go on their mission. So once she and Mark leave, Irving then approaches Dylan with a different plan, going off script, going off mission like Irving loves to do. It wouldn't be Irv if he wasn't not sticking to the plan. So he tells Dylan that he recreated the dark hallway that his Audi painted, and he believes it's on the severed floor somewhere. And he thinks, this is maybe what I've been seeing. And so he asks Dylan to accompany him in search of it, but Dylan hesitates and he also finds a reason to get out of this too. And he says Irving should probably go by himself for stealth. So suddenly Mrs. Wong appears because she just be popping up silently. Ooh. You don't see her enter a space ever. She's just there. So she's giving them that stare that she does so well. And Irving flashes his hall pass and he walks on out. And then once he does, Mrs. Wong then softens to a smile and tells Dylan, G, come with me, please. Then we cut to the hallway, and as Helly and Mark are on their way to find the goat man, Helly raises questions about Mark's plan, asking what they'll do if they find Miss Casey in a goat cage or wherever else. And Mark says that he'll rush with her out the south stairwell, and once he's out there, his Audi will know what to do. He double checks that Helly is okay with doing this, and she says yes, and then they stand, and they have a moment that felt like it lasts several moments. And it seems like they really want to kiss. They're not sure how to go about it. They both lean a little hum and ha and smile and stop smiling. And it's super awkward. And then Mark is like, let's keep on going. In between all of that, Milchak comes in to find the abandoned, deflated balloons that Mark left in the hallway on day one. And agitated, he swipes the balloons in his hand and he storms off.
Okay, I guess let's go back to the beginning. I love that both these Audis have missions and plans going on, right? Like, or both versions of Mark, rather, his Innie and his Audi have objectives, but the kind of crux of each objective is the same. Like Miss Casey is at the center of both ends of it, right?
Yes.
At least we find that out later for Audi Mark as well. But okay, the Dylan thing is worrying me. I'm worried. I don't like that this is already driving a wedge between him and the other three.
Especially because he and Irving had that moment.
Right.
And I would expect that he's closer with Irving and Helly and Mark are closer. Right. And so if he is not going to tell the group, he's at least going to tell Irving and be upfront with him. And he hasn't yet. And yes, that makes me nervous. Yeah. I am very nervous. I said that his encounter with Milchak with the blueprints for the Audi visitation suite, I was like, he planted a seed and I hope it doesn't take root. And it looks like it already is.
And he hasn't even seen an Audi visitation at this point, as far as we know, and as far as he knows, it's just a hope. It's just an option, a possibility. Yeah. And I kind of noted too, I don't know how much time has passed between the previous episode and right now, because it seems like there's been enough time for some things to have taken place. Because we see Irv with a hall pass badge, and just from the cold open, I would think it's taken some time to figure out what this thing is that Mark is trying to do. Like, so I'm like, it's been at least a few days, maybe a week,
I didn't really think too much on it. I mean, to your point, we learn later that Dylan does earn his incentive that shows up. So maybe it has been a little bit of time, because when would he have had time to earn that too? So,
right. Yeah. True. So that just was another thing that kind of stood out to me. I was like, how much time has passed? Because I'm thinking it's the next day. And then it's like, it seems like there's been a little bit more time in between than we realized.
So then the next part in the same section, before we move on to your other note, when Mark is giving out all of the instructions and whatnot, Helly asks, like, are we sure they're going to let us just wander around here? And they're like, remember, Mark, Lumen is listening. And Dylan was like, yeah, I thought that meant they were listening to our conversations. And Irving's like, he's right, Mark. I did get a
The
hint of a
double
double
meaning.
meaning. Yeah, and I just thought Irving even catching that double meaning is another sign of like how much his character has changed, you know?
There has been a big shift from the OTC with Irving. Like he is
Mm-hmm.
very much more
Yeah,
astute.
because Mark is like, yeah, Lumen is listening. They heard us. They're gonna let us do this. I'm just like, why are you taking this so literally, Mark? No.
I think in a way, Mark knows that's not true, but he wants to do what he wants to,
Right.
because he even said it. And, you know, if they catch us, what are they going to do? It's funny to see how the OTC has shifted people away from their
Yes.
pre-OTC any personas, right? Like Mark was much more trepidatious before, much more reserved, much more, hey, let's not make too many waves. This seems risky, da da da. And now he's gone the complete opposite, where he's just like, F the rules. They said it's a brand new day at Lumen, right? They said Lumen is listening, right? So this means I get to do what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And consequences be damned, you know? And then Irving, same thing. It's like Irving before was very like, here is the answer and the way and the truth and the light. And we just have to honor the Lumen principles and blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah, blah. And now he's questioning. He's much more the skeptic
Yeah.
now rather than the loyalist and the apologist. So
Yeah, he's had a crisis of faith.
yeah, I mean, Dylan's just, it's just the exposure to a broader world, right? His world was so
Yeah.
narrow. It was so me, what am I doing? How am I so great?
Yeah.
To, oh, I have people that depend on me. I have a
Yeah.
family. Huh, there could be something more important than satisfying myself.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just, and it's going to curse everybody because it's
Yeah.
going to be everybody's undoing.
Yeah.
Oh, the pendulum swing. Going to
Mm-hmm.
Helly, I'm still wavering. I'm still hedging, but I just see more and more things that I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
seems very Helena. And two things happened in this moment, right? In the hall, there was a moment that I caught, and the thing with him grabbing or her grabbing Irving's hand, which on the surface doesn't seem weird, right? Like that's just a nice, encouraging
Yeah.
thing. But what it threw me back to was the moment with Helena and Miss Cowbell.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the fact that Helena is so ready to just, okay, we hear you. Of course, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that kind of false caring type of thing. And that seems to be her default to like, if people are in crisis, just act like you care.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We got you. Don't worry. And that's what it made me think of. And I was like, dang it. Feels like another Helena
funny
thing.
To me, I felt like I didn't even really consider the debate this episode. I was more just like, oh, they're clearly fading it into the background because they don't want this to be the focus anymore. Like they're fully aware that it was the focus for the first two episodes for viewers.
Right.
And now she's just here. So whether it's Helena, she's just playing it safe and not doing anything really telling, or if it's Helly's just going along to appease Mark. And either way, we're not going to get much clues to either or. So I didn't spend time considering her at all. There is a question that I have later that is about this that I guess I'm just contradicting myself because I did. Well, see, I fit in another watch this morning that I didn't think I was going to fit in, and there was a revelation. So that's coming later.
Okay, we'll get to that later. So then the other moment, which I guess we can now just jump down to the hallway scene with her and Mark, the kiss hedge. Oh gosh, first of all, that whole thing was just cringe. That was a moment where I was like at the TV, like, oh, stop this, stop it.
You have to look
I don't
away.
like it. It's not as cute. They played it so great between the two of them. It definitely wasn't one of those rom-com moments where you're like, just lean in, just kiss. It's like, oh, stop this, stop. I feel like the reason why Mark is kind of like, wait, should I? Is because the first time Helly just went
in, yeah.
I feel like he kind of was like slightly leaning in because he was expecting her to just kind of take charge. Like, well, she wanted to kiss me so bad before, she'll do it again. But wait, now she's kind of pulling away. Oh, maybe I'm misreading. Wait, no, you do. Are we doing? Is this? Are we doing this?
To play devil's advocate here, though, a lot has changed since that kiss.
Yes.
And she did show in the other hallway conversation in the first episode, is this thing that we were starting okay? Because now you have a wife that you need to save, right?
That is a good point. I think I default, again, because I'm just trying to confirmation bias my theory. I default went to, I feel like Helena wouldn't go in for a kiss because if she's not very affectionate or confrontational, she wouldn't
that's a big
know what to do or how to like
ask for her.
So that was just where my brain went.
Oh, wait. Also in the
Okay.
hallway. Mark's plan makes sense, right? We got to get her to the exit where we're both severed. We're both going to flip and my Audi will know what to do. But I was like, ooh, what would happen if Miss Casey passed that severance threshold? What do we think would happen? Because we still don't know how we got from Mark buried her to she's
Mm-hmm.
on this
She's
she's
alive.
on the
Yeah.
severed floor. So does she
Yeah.
even have a consciousness to switch to? Like what would happen? Would she still be Miss Casey? Or I don't know, but I'm just like, ooh.
Okay, now this is going back to the PD
Yeah.
map. This is going back to the Lexington letter of like the whole indoor houses that we
Mm-hmm.
saw and the note that PD wrote that's like people don't leave, or there's some
Don't
minis that
leave.
don't ever leave.
Exactly.
And my wondering is if she is truly dead, or again, another theory from the car accident is that she was brain dead
Yeah.
and declared dead, then the lumen device might be the only thing that's giving her any kind of consciousness, but only
Right.
within the confines of lumen.
Exactly.
So it would probably be devastating as hell because he'd walk her
And
out
then she
that
would
door
just
and she'd
like
probably
pass
just
out.
collapse,
Yeah.
which is scary.
Right.
Or maybe there's a possibility that the chip just stays in Miss Casey mode and she would just always be this kind of
Yeah,
automaton.
yeah. Does she just stay Miss Casey and then she wouldn't know who he is?
Or only know him as Mark S
Mark
and not
Innie.
Mark Scout. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you just imagine? Mark gets out into the stairwell, switches back, looks over and sees Miss Casey Gemma, and she just literally like eyes roll back in her head and she just slumps
Right.
over.
How
He would be traumatized
traumatizing.
forever.
Yeah.
Traumatized forever. I
Yeah.
don't, now I'm like, oh, this is a bad idea.
Terrible.
Oh,
Oh,
let sleeping dogs lie. Ugh. And then Milchick is just mad. And you know, in some ways, I feel bad for him. In some ways, generally it's 80-20. You bring a lot of this on yourself. It's just so funny to me that he was so put off by balloons. I'm like, why do you care so much that he kept these balloons or not?
Milchek, what was he gonna do? Was he gonna take those balloons home? Like, did you really think he was gonna leave the office with them?
Right. It just seemed like he already was coming in just like on the left foot instead of the right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what's going on in his outer world, but it seemed like he was already coming in at 10 and then saw them balloons and shot up to 20.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to get Audi Milchick life at all this season? I hope so. I want to know what this dude
Yeah.
does off the clock.
Yeah, I do too. I want to know if the three black people we see working at Lumen are the only black people in here. Does he have like a group?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Does he have a social circle that
Mm-hmm.
looks like him? I wonder.
I'm gonna say probably not. But but then the question becomes, do we venture out of Kier ever? Do we always
Yeah,
stay in Kier?
he got that motorcycle.
But yeah, I hope we get to see some of his external life. Okay, so in this next section, I just have to give you guys a title because I just thought it was funny. We titled it Ebony and Ivory go together like Seth and
Listen,
Harmony.
guys, you know, Rodnesha and I split the responsibility for setting up our notes, and I got in, and she had already done these first few sections, and I was like, no, she didn't. When I saw this section, and then it's just for us, right? It's just to help us organize.
It is. No one's
But
seeing this.
I was
No one
like,
else is
she
seeing
is
this.
so silly.
But tell me it's not true. This whole little moment, black and white. Come on now.
I mean, they don't go together well, though. Seth and Harmony.
No, they don't. Or do they? No.
No.
All right, that's fine.
I would like to say before you
Mm,
get into this section,
yes.
this scene was a little traumatic for me to watch. I'm not gonna hold you. It was a lot.
All right, let's talk about it. Okay, so as Milchick storms into his office, he opens the door to find Natalie present and sitting on his desk, smiling. And she says the board is on, and Milchick awkwardly begins to express his gratitude for his promotion, yada, yada. And she stops him because apparently the board has perkily said, "You're welcome." And then Natalie moves on to state how the board is jubilant at his ascendance and has provided a gift. Now, she says that this gift is from the board and is intended to help him see himself in Kier, our founder. Seth opens the portfolio to reveal the entire portraited Kier cycle in blackface.
Mm.
And Milchick is left speechless and stunned while Natalie emphasizes that she too has received such a gift when promoted. And then we see a look. They just glance back and forth, and there's this knowing and this pained interior that has to be forced through a smiling exterior.
Mm-hmm.
And Natalie indeed does just that. She forces a smile through and then departs. Mm-hmm. In another neck of the woods, Harmony, still driving, approaches a road sign that says Salt's Neck 238. And she stares at it perplexed and then looks down again at that passenger seat. And we finally see what it is that she is holding in such esteem. It is the breathing tube that she clings to so desperately. She has gently placed it in the passenger seat. This sends her into a teary-eyed state of reflection, and she then makes a U-turn and begins driving back the direction from whence she came. All right.
I'm going to read the full sentence that Natalie says and then my reaction to it.
Please.
So she said, the board austerely desires for you to feel connected to Lumen history. To that end, please accept these inclusively recanonicalized paintings intended to help you see yourself in Kier, our founder. And I immediately said, no, they didn't. And then he walked over to the box and he opened and they showed. And I said, oh my God, they put Kier in blackface. They did do it. Because as soon as she said recanonicalized, I was like, ain't no way. Ain't no way.
Oh, 100%.
No.
That was another one of those shout at the TV moments. I'm sitting here watching and she says, the board has a gift. And I was like, okay. And then she says, recanonicalized. And I said, no. I know they aren't about to. I know.
No, they didn't.
Good and doggone well. They're not about to do what I think they're going to do. They did it.
I was like, this gotta mean something else. This gotta mean something else. It can't be what I think it's about to be. And then it was.
You already know. And just to see it, my brain, okay, I think this may be a generalization, but I feel like anyone Black who is watching this show and got to this moment, we all had that same running interior that Milchick did, which is like, what am I looking at? Am I really looking at what I'm looking at? Is this really happening? Is this really happening right now?
And then how do I play this? Because these are my bosses.
He couldn't even finish the statement because I think he was like, I do appreciate seeing myself. It literally was just like, I can't even verbalize because this is.
Yeah. And he didn't say anything at first, right? He didn't say anything. No. And then that's when the board was like, Natalie, tell them you got it too. And Natalie shares like, oh, I received a similar gift.
Yeah, me too.
And was so grateful.
Me too, Milchick. I got one.
Yeah. And I was so grateful for it. And then he starts being like, oh, yeah. I'm grateful. Oh, yeah, me too. So, he starts to try to choke out a thank you for the gift. And then she lets him know that the board is not on. They've ended the call, but Lumen is listening. And she knows well enough in her role that they probably are still listening.
100%.
So she can't say anything. But her face, she said so much, right? She said, don't say anything. She said, I know. And I'm sorry.
I know this is BS.
Right? She said, accept it because any other response is not going to be.
This is what we have to do.
Yeah.
This is what we have to do.
Ooh, and I this is where I was standing in front of my TV and I was pointing at her and I said, yes, that. I was pointing at her and I was like, that. Oh my gosh. And I was just like, as much as I cannot stand Natalie and what she stands for, what she represents at Lumen, at the end of the day, she's still a Black woman in the workplace. And I felt so connected to her in that moment with just that look. And I had to pause for a little bit.
And it spoke so many things. It's like, even earlier in this podcast where I joked about the DEI thing, it's like, this is the stuff, right? That look said to me, we don't get here by just being us. We have to be what they want us to be. So this is what it is. Everything that was communicated in that look between the two of them, it was so much of a like, seriously, this is how they see us. And she's like, yes, this is how they see us.
Also, yes, they are this tone deaf. Yes.
And it's just like, oh, wow. I know we don't want to be on this particular scene all day, but I got to get all my thoughts out because the other thing I thought back to is when Tramiel was on the official Severance podcast, and I brought this up in another episode, but when he talked about how they discussed Milchick being a Black man working for this company and what that means for Mel as the actor playing him and as Milchick, the character. And it's weird because in the conversation, I was like, okay, well, maybe they just had those conversations as informative backstory. Are we actually going to see them address it? I don't know. And then we get to this episode and I was like, oh, they said it. They said the quiet part out loud. They did it. So it wasn't like lip servicey. Let's talk about you being a Black guy at Lumen. What do you think? What are your thoughts? It was like, oh no, we're going to put it on display.
You know, I thought back to the same conversation because in that conversation between Tramell and Ben and Adam, Tramell had to remind the white guys that he's not the only Black one. And I immediately was like,
I thought about that too.
The proximity to whiteness, the light skin privilege of it all.
Yep.
And, you know, they didn't mean anything by it. But, you know, someone like Dylan, someone like Sydney is not getting talked about in the same conversations all the time in the workplace as someone like like Mr. Milchick, right?
The funny thing is when it happened there, I did have a that he had to remind them like, oh, and Natalie and Dylan. And again, it is easy to overlook those two because Milchick is very obviously a Black man. You know, do we think as much about that about Dylan and Natalie? Maybe not.
Well, we do, right? But the others don't. And that's, you know, that's what I'm getting at, right? Is that it's not thought about in the same way because it's not as prominent.
Yeah. But the fact that they did make that moment, create that space, and that it's Natalie that is the one that has to usher in this reality to him.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of interesting the chain from now, I'm just thinking about this, from Tramell to Dylan. Yeah. That Tramell is trying to bring Dylan in as it's like, hey, I'm doing you a favor. Right. They're not going to help you. And even though you're severed, I want to help you out. I don't know that that's truly his intent at the end of the day.
I think about how no matter where I'm working, you seek out the people that are like you, right? And I wonder if Dylan ever had a moment of feeling like, well, Milchick's a Black man, you know, maybe there's something there, or does he not have that because he's severed? I'm so curious about that piece of it. But then, you know, Milchick and Natalie are not severed.
Right.
So they carry all of that in there with them.
Gosh. Nicole Alexander. I'm just thinking the acting. I know a lot of people online have been comparing it to the Get Out scene. Yeah. And it's funny because I didn't immediately think of that, even though once it was pointed out, I was like, oh, obviously. But it was the same uneasiness that I had watching her in that face and in that moment of just like, oh, this makes me so uncomfortable because it just expresses so much about like the things that as a Black person you want to address and speak to, the microaggressions, the this and that, and you can't, you don't get to.
Yeah. And Natalie has such a role that she sees and hears all of it, right? She's their mouthpiece. So not only does she see and hear it, but she has to be the one, I'm sure, to communicate those microaggressions sometime, right? Just like this.
Right.
Right.
What she has to do again as an unsevered person to go home at night and sit with all of this. And am I really vouching for these folks? Am I really rolling for these folks?
Right. And, you know, one thing that also came up in that interview with Tramell Tillman was like, he essentially said like they have to be drinking the Kool-Aid in one way or the other, basically. You know, there has to be something else about like Keir's teaching that they really believe in, like a religion to look past that, all of that.
You go with that because it's like, surely this organization sees me for me. I have to, you know, sidestep these other things, but it's because at the core, they're going to see and value me as me. And then when you get something like that presented to you and it's like, no, we still see you as not quite us, but we can make it so that you feel like us. And it's like, dang, this was supposed to be my safe space and it ain't. And I will always be othered. And that is how it goes.
Right. He was already motivated and excited to be working there.
It's like, I know this is a white man with blue eyes.
Right.
I don't need to see him in blackface. I know what I'm in for.
This was not needed at all. It's not doing what you intended for.
I'm here for the teachings. I'm here for the principles. I'm not looking at them like, oh, I wish he was Black though. Then I'd really be in.
The promotion and the raise tells me that I'm valued. I don't need this. I know for time, some of this is going to have to be cut, but we're going to put this whole thing this whole section uncut up on Patreon.
I'm going to try very hard to keep as much of it in as I can because I think it's important. But again, for time's sake,
we can't say enough how perfect Sydney Cole Alexander was. Like, my goodness, to that end. Last week, you said something to the effect of like, it's disgusting how good this show is and how good everything works. And again, I was just like, I always wonder when an actor gets hired into a small role that gets bigger. how much did they do in the beginning? You know, how much faith you have to put into an actor to know that they'll be able to go where you're going to take them in the future. Because I was so gobsmacked because it came out of nowhere. Right. I wasn't expecting to even have a scene where she needed to do this, you know, where this character needed to do this. And she was amazing. And we just keep getting these moments where so much is communicated with just a look. We've gotten it from John Turturro many times. We got it from Britt Lauer last week, and now Sydney Cole Alexander. And it's just,
and Dylan, first episode.
Yeah, we've gotten it from Dylan. Yes. Everybody's amazing. It's disgusting how good it is. Like you said, I love it. Yeah.
Let's talk about Ms. Cowbell.
Yes, Ms. Cowbell. Yes, you had a question.
I just mostly, again, we already talked in the first scene about how I pretty much realized it was the breathing tube.
Yes.
She's so clung to that thing. Literally every time she's had an emotional breakdown, she like holds onto that thing like it's a security blanket. So when she looked down the first time, I was like, I know good and doggone well she did not prop that tube up in the front seat. And she had it like nicely curled. It wasn't like she just threw it in there and she's like, placed here you go. Let's go for a ride.
I'm almost surprised she didn't have like the seatbelt clicked over.
Yeah. Or like a little booster seat. Anyway, but my question was, where do we think Harmony is headed? We see the sign for Salt's Neck, 238 miles, where she has stopped once again is again just another kind of like rural area in the middle of nowhere. We see this kind of farmhouse looking thing way off in the distance.
I looked it up and I was like, it's not a real city, which makes me think, okay, this is another province or whatever location. Yeah. So maybe she's going to another place where Lumen does like medical stuff and is going to go hunt down some information or something.
Okay. I thought for a second, is she going to either where she grew up, like birthplace, home, or what have you? Is she going there to kind of like reconnect to her roots and who she is? Is she going there to hide out? Is she going to mom's grave? Because we pretty much assume that the breathing tube is her mom's. Is she going somewhere in that vicinity to try to like get re-inspired by why she's with Lumen in the first place? Yeah.
It's a really weird name for a place, Salt's Neck.
Yeah. I did try to think too, like, why would it be called Salt's Neck? Is that a mining town thing? Like, salt mines?
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of thought of salt pork and I was like, I don't know why. I was like, maybe it's a farming like, community, Salt's Neck, salt pork. I don't know. Or am I hungry? Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't think of too many other things that it could mean for like a city name or a township or what have you. Okay, there wasn't much else with that I wanted to discuss, just was curious about that.
With that then, let's get into where, unless you want to ask your duck question, I don't know.
What was the other question? I had another question.
You said you still can't figure out what the heck is going on with the duck statue in Milchick's office. And I was like, this is her
it's the vending machine.
This is the vending machine. This is the bad soap all over again. She's not gonna get off this duck statue.
Why I find one or two things a season to be like, what is that?
I haven't had that moment yet.
I don't know why. I think it's because I just feel like one, set design is intentional, and two, character wise, the choices they make for what they put in their office is indicative of like what it's trying to say about that character.
Right.
So I keep trying to figure out what animal it is, if it is a real animal.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's going to say something about Milchick. Because it's like we've got Kira on one side, per usual, and we've got this weird animal thing. And I'm just like, what is it? And I'm not going to lie. I actually did try to do a Google image search. I took a picture of it, but of course I'm doing it from my phone on a TV screen and the coloring is wrong. So because it was against the blue background, it just looked like something in the ocean. So then all the images that came up were like ocean animals. Things. And I was like, no, look for this thing. It's a statue. And I tried to put in terms to be like, it's a statue, metal statue on a stick. Couldn't find it. And I was just like, I just want to know what it is. Just satisfy my curiosity, please. Is it a duck? Is it a platypus? Is it a crocodile? Is it a skull? Is it a fictitious animal?
Now that it's, I will, it does seem much more bird-like than now that we can see the full head rather than like crocodile. It does seem like a duck bird. Or something like that.
Okay.
And the tip of the beak is like hooked. It's pointed.
It's is not hooked.
Like flat bill.
And also there are little like ridgy things that could be teeth or like grooves in the bill. So it doesn't look straight up like a smooth duck bill. And that's why I'm like, what is this thing? Is this like a hybrid of more than one animal then?
this statue? And is it going to end up being something along the lines of like the tempers, where it represents something else in the Kier
pantheon? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it may never get answered. This may end up being like the bad soap, and I'll just never know if it's real or not, if it means anything or not. But this will be my thing. So sorry, not sorry.
Now we're ready to move on.
Yes.
So Mark and Helly find what they were looking for. They go to the room where they previously encountered the man feeding the baby goat, but this time it's empty, just a little barn and a couple bales of hay and something from the top. It made me think of like fake udders, but it looked like a sprinkler system or something. Like I wasn't sure what that was. Yeah, some kind of feeding something, I think. However, they notice now that there is a little crawl space with some flaps, and there's a tunnel that has a little bit of hay and poop along the track, and they look at each other like, are we doing this? And Mark goes in and Helly's like, okay, we're doing this. All right. So they crawl through. They showed the shot, and I was like, "Is that poop?" And then he's like, "Watch out, there's poop." And I was like, but then they crawl out, and they find themselves in a giant room full of grassy knolls and not so baby goat grazing everywhere. And as they pass what appears to be a very mature male goat, it rises up to reveal it's just the skin of a horned goat head atop a large man's head, who spies on Helly and Mark as they go by. Which, by the way, I think you were right when we talked about this in the preview, where you were like, is he doing some kind of thing where he is trying to blend in with the goats? Like, he's trying to blend in with the goats. I think it was. So then Lorne, played by Gwendolyn Christie, suddenly appears at the top of the hillside, and she has big, large gloves on. She's holding shears up like she is ready to attack. And she says, "Are you here to kill me?" Oh boy. So I guess those rumors about MDR haven't died down. Died down. They have spread far and wide, far beyond O&D, right? So Mark attempts to calm her down, saying like, we're part of MDR. What is this place? And she says, Mammalians Nurturable, which I noticed you have the apostrophe. I saw some people write Mammalians, comma, Nurturable. I noticed some people wrote it with writing it with an apostrophe.
I wrote it based on the captions on my TV.
You know what's so funny? I was just gonna say the captions on my TV don't have a comma or an apostrophe. They just say Mammalians Nurturable.
Oh shoot, so which one is it?
I don't know what it is. Yeah, I'm curious, right? Because later she refers to the people working there. She refers to herself and the other people working there as the Mammalians. Yeah, so I'm like, I don't. Interesting. Anyway, small detail, probably unimportant, but I just wanted to point it out. So they agree to sit and talk, where they show Lorne the picture of Miss Casey. They ask if she's seen her, if she knows, and Lorne twitches a bit, but she says wellness isn't something that they are concerned with there. And Helly starts to move on, but Mark notices something and presses, and she insists that they take their paper and go, but Mark says that he's not going to leave until he gets some answers. Then Lorne grabs the Lumen cowbell. It's big, and she rigorously rings that bell, and out from the woodwork come all of the other members of Mammalians Nurturable, and some are carrying literal pitchforks, some have shears, some have rakes, and they all look scary AF. Okay. Meanwhile, we see that Irving arrives at O&D, and he's looking around and he's remembering, and he sees the picture that Smooth Bert used of Kier and Imogen. And then Felicia comes out from behind and calls out to him, and Irving begins to apologize, but she's just simply happy to see him and gives him a hug. And maybe for the first time in a long while, Irving gets to exhale. Yeah.
Waiting to exhale. Sorry, I had to. Do we want to start with our shorter scene, or do we want to go back to the top and work down?
Oh, we can start with the shorter scene with Irving and O&D. Yeah, let's do that.
I don't have much to say. It just was very sweet. The music, the Bert Irv lovey, romancy music. I'm like, I miss hearing this in their little moments.
Yeah.
We don't really get to hear it that much because no Bert. And just to see, like, from an acting note, the way John Turturro's just looking at these things, and you can see what he's seeing, right? Like when he looks into the corner of the room, you see Bert's last day and the TV in the corner, and that's like the last place he saw him. He looks over at, you know, the different portraits and images, and you're seeing those moments that they had together. I'm like, he doesn't even have to really say it. They don't have to do one of those weird flashbacky, fadey things where you see it happening in the fade distance. It's like you see it because he sees it.
Yeah, I think my only thought about this was, they don't have to do any changes or anything because we know it's only been a couple days, right? And I immediately thought, oh, Irving is going to find that out now because he, in his apology, he says, you know, I'm sorry for showing up here after all this time. And I was like, oh, is it going to come out in conversation with Felicia that it hasn't actually been 5 months? But I don't think
I wonder
did,
if at a certain point it might, right? I don't know. I did think that too for a second. I was like, oh, is she going to be like, you know, it's only been 3 days. Yeah, I know your work is busy. And he's like, 3 days, it's been 5 months. But it didn't happen, which is fine. But the hug, I just was like, oh, because I mean, not that Felicia was cold to Irv, but like, you know, she had her rapport with Bert. Bert was her guy, right?
Yeah.
They're peas in a pod, right? And she knows they have their little thing and she doesn't really speak to it much. But just to see that she clearly is like, we both lost someone and he was just as important to you as he is to me. And we need each other now. And I'm like,
the friends of friends grieving their mutual. Yeah.
The way she embraced him, it gave him permission to like be sad about this loss. Like MDR doesn't really get it. It's like, okay, we're sad for you. That sucks. But they've already moved on to their other things and he's still grieving and processing. And she's the one person that's given him permission to exist in that space. And just, I'm sad too. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
It's very sweet.
Yeah, it was very sweet. Okay, mammalians nurturable.
Let's get back to this grassy knoll. What in the hills have eyes is going on here?
Yes, I wrote Children of the Corn. You wrote Hills Have Eyes. I was like, all of it. Why do they all look like this?
Applies.
Why do all of them look like this?
I was like, okay, this is straight up like a scene out of a horror movie. Like just people arising out of the hills, looking like they haven't seen the sun in eons.
When they all started coming out, I was still standing in front of the TV and my mom was just walking by at this point and I said, what the she started laughing. I was like, oh my God, what is happening?
What is happening? Okay, well, could you imagine just coming into this giant space where there's literally like a grassy knoll right in front of you, indoors? And there's just goats everywhere, looking like freaking Sound of Music. Where am I right now? What is this place? And then you wander, you go, you travel up, and then some lady appears at the top of the hill with shears. And
some large lady, because we all know how tall.
It gave me flashbacks to Brienne of Tarth, Game of Thrones. Are you here to kill me? I was like, yes. Justice for Brienne. And I just love Gwendolyn Christie. I don't know what it is about her, but just like she has such dichotomy in her build and body, right? Like, she's tall, she's statuesque, you know, but then she has like this very like soft countenance and also like a grit. I get why she gets the role she gets, right?
Yeah.
Fun look to kind of play with.
Yeah.
I do also love this milkmaid vibe that they've given her.
Yes.
This hair and this bandana, and
it's so funny. When she comes and explains, well, she doesn't explain, is what I was getting ready to say, actually. She just says mammalians nurturable and nothing else. And I was like, I'm gonna need some more information, lady.
You know, the only thing I can think is maybe the way they have heard of MDR, they assume other parts of Lumen know what mammalians nurturable is or who they are. I don't know.
Yeah.
Even though it feels like MDR is the only department everybody knows about. Well, not, okay, question. Do you think that all the other departments know about each other except for MDR, and MDR is the only one who doesn't know about everybody else?
I was just going to say there's something that is particularly important about MDR that Lumen must not want any other. They don't want them interacting with each other, period, but it's specifically with MDR because of how important their work is what I'm thinking. And I think that's why that the scary stories about MDR circulate everywhere, whether MDR is aware of those places or not.
Because it's wild that everybody knows about the MDR. What did they call it? What did they call the painting?
The macro data refinement calamity.
Thank you. Thank you for remembering, because I forgot. But yeah, it's the story and the lore. And as we see later, the questioning of the pouches, like all of that has circulated to every department.
Yes.
And yet MDR don't know about any of these other places.
Yeah, right. And I think they probably only know about O&D because it's hard to avoid a run-in with O&D because
they're rotating stuff out. Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, mammalian's nurturable. When she said that, I was like, this sounds like vitamins. It sounds like wellness product.
Oh my gosh, it does sound like vitamins. That's so funny. Natural, bovine, whatever, you know?
So I don't know if that's what they're doing. I don't know if that's what these goats are for, but the first thing I thought was vitamins, wellness, which again, we know that lumen is in pharmaceuticals. So maybe they're also in the wellness game as well. Okay. Next section. We're heading to the OVC. All right.
It's not C. You keep saying C.
I thought it was Audi Visitation Center. Is it not?
Sweet.
Oh.
Are you not looking at the notes?
Well, no, I see that there, but I thought when they showed the blueprints that it said Audi Visitation Center. No?
It said sweet.
Oh, shoot. Okay. OVS. OVS sounds like ovum. It sounds like something woman's problems related. Sorry. Okay. We're headed to the OVS. I don't know why that sounds weird to me.
Because you've been saying OVC. You're committed to OVC.
Okay. Meanwhile, in the midst of all of this, Miss Huang leads a nervous Dylan to the security office and sends him in. We see that it has indeed been turned into the Audi visitation suite that Mr. Milchick promised. Dylan is then greeted by a wall of photos on that memory wall that we saw in the blueprint, and then turns to find that their wife, Gretchen, is there in the room. Miss Huang then informs Dylan that through good behavior and good output, he has earned 18 whole minutes with his Audi's wife, and then leaves him to it. So they have an awkward yet warm greeting with one another. They sit to chat. Gretchen shares that Seth told her it might be weird, and that's where we realize that Dylan don't know who Seth is. And guess what? Ms. Wong is going to make sure you don't know either. So Gretchen then tells Dylan that, you know, they have some exchanges about their children, who Dylan is. And it's at that point that Gretchen makes clear to Innie Dylan that Audi Dylan tends to have trouble keeping jobs, which essentially deflates Dylan's delusions of grandeur about his Audi's life.
I love Merritt Weaver so much. I said it already as soon as I found out that she was in the show. I was excited. She does Eeyore so well, and I mean it in such a loving way, but she has an Eeyore quality that she brings to her characters. And this one, it works, right? Where she's clearly carrying the weight of something, and she's also in real time realizing like, oh, this is real. You really don't know who I am. And you are kind of childlike, and I have to explain this to you in a way that's not going to upset you, even though it's kind of upsetting what I have to come talk to you about. Right. Like I love her. Yeah. It was great. This seems great.
When you said Eeyore quality, I was like, oh yeah, that's what it is. There is just kind of like a somberness to her character, and we come to maybe see what's rooted in some of that somberness, right? But yeah, it was interesting to watch her observe Innie Dylan through their exchange, and it's like, this is my husband, but also this is not my husband. And it's like, as much as she is surprised that he doesn't know or remember anything about her or their kids or their family or life or whatever, it's almost like she's getting to experience a different side of her husband that she maybe never knew could be possible. And that makes me wonder about how Dylan on the outside is with her.
It made me think of, a side of him that she's never seen before, or a side of him that she hasn't seen
in a long time,
in a very long time, right? And there's a moment, where he says like badass, she kind of reacts to that like, like not like a surprise almost. It's kind of just like, oh, familiar, if that makes sense.
I couldn't help but think with the Gretchen Dylan exchange from Gretchen's end. Yeah. Is there, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit to the scene she has with Dylan later, but it almost feels like maybe she's wanting to make this a thing between the two of them. It felt a little affair-like, if you get my meaning. Yeah. Like I get to have a different side of my husband.
Well, yeah, and I didn't want to jump ahead because it also has to do with like the scene that comes right after.
Okay, we'll save it for later. But I caught that even in this moment between the two of them, where it almost felt like she was reinvigorated by getting getting to access this version, and I could just see this kind of, do I want to do this more often? Do I want this to be a thing? So yeah, it was a little sad to see how deflated Dylan got by realizing that his Audi ain't so great.
But also Gretchen being like, oh, no, he's not.
He just never quite found his thing.
Right. And it's like, oh, this is what she tells Audi Dylan all the time.
I'm so curious what Dylan's life trajectory has been and why he, quote, hasn't found his thing. Like, I know that there are people that have a hard time keeping a job. They get fired from every place. But is it because he does have a thing, but he can't do the thing that he desires to do? Is it that he truly just doesn't know how to be good at anything? Is it that he doesn't really want to work? Or has he tried to do that thing and failed at it? And because he failed, I guess I'll just settle for something else.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So next we go back to O&D with Felicia and Irving reminiscing about good old times with Bert. And Felicia shares that in all of her 6 years with working with Bert, the only time she ever saw him scared was when he was getting ready to go visit Irving. He fixed his hair for 2 hours. And then Irving pulls out a small notebook and reveals that he sketched a picture of Bert every day he wasn't able to see him. And Felicia flips through all of the Berts, and then she goes a little too far and she finds the picture of the hallway that Irving has recreated from his Audi's paintings. And she asks him, how do you know about the exports hall? Bum, bum, bum. Somebody already knows about this place. So Irving is confused, and Felicia explains that they used to take many items, many shipments to the exports hall, but now they send a guy to do it instead. And intrigued, Irving asks if she remembers how to get there. And this is just a little section, but that's where we leave it. We don't know. Is Felicia gonna take him? Like, what's gonna happen?
I bet that's where them hatchets went that they were making in season 1.
The sketches, I was like, oh, Irving's Innie is an artist too. Oh, I love this.
It's
I love
sweet.
this
And we didn't know. And we didn't know until now.
Yeah. But one thing that I noticed when Felicia explains about the export hall, she mentions it with like a fondness and like a smile. And then it switches when she says, now they send a guy. It just makes me wonder, okay, what is this exports hall? What is on the other side? And we saw Miss Casey be very, very afraid when she got to the edge of that hall. So we just assume that it's something terrible, right?
Right.
But now I'm like, okay, where does this elevator go? Does it go to many places?
True. Could
because
be that.
why is Felicia's reaction not, how do you know about the exports hall? And I was like, how do you know about the exports hall?
It's got to be a mixed thing though, because when she did ask him, she didn't meet his eye line. She definitely was just kind of like, how do you know about the exports hall? And it's all like there almost was like I don't really want to look you in the eye when I say this because there is something off about that.
She smiled.
But the fact that she didn't look at him was the weird part to me, because it's like no one else is supposed to know about this.
That's how I read it the first 2 times I watched it, but the third time through I was like, no, this is something different.
I don't know. Because here's the thing, it could be a devious smile. Maybe it's not an enjoyment smile. Maybe it's like, oh, we used to do some things in the exports hall. I don't know. But to me, it was the fact that she wouldn't meet his eye line to talk about it, which indicates to me that there's something sus about it. So I don't know.
Either way, that's what I read.
Okay.
But yeah, that was the question that I put on there was like, oh, revisiting your previous theory. Oh, did he used to work in O&D? Not like a higher up position,
right?
But maybe he worked in O&D and got reset.
When you said that in the notes, I was like, it would make sense because he is an artist.
Yeah.
And maybe he originally was hired because of his proclivity to art. And that was his initial point of origin, was working O&D. Well, I guess we'll see. Oh, I was going to say, who do we think is the guy that they send instead? Do we think it's Beardy?
I have no idea.
Do we think?
I don't think so.
No?
I mean, maybe. I didn't try to figure out who the guy was, but I
just figured since they indicated that they send a guy and they left it vague, that they're going to at some point reveal the guy. Because otherwise, I feel like they'd say like, oh, they send a guy from such and such now or whatever. But the fact that, I don't know. And it may not be anything. It might just be a nothing burger. But I'm like, is this guy importante to something? Or does he have a larger role in other things? And that's why they send someone to take care of stuff now, to make sure it's getting taken care of or stay secretive or what have you. I don't know. It may not be Beardy either, but
Yeah, I feel like it would be like a more of a greener looking type guy. I don't know.
Oh, you don't think Beardy's scary enough?
Beauty's just weird to me. I don't know. I don't know that he's scary.
Okay,
I don't
okay.
know.
I mean, he's got that slick hand tap, right?
Right. Oh Lord, frolic.
That's how we know he's hard. Okay, let's move on. We're back at Mammalian's Nurturable, and the Lumen husbandry team has Mark and Helly surrounded like an angry mob with torches and pitchforks. Helly takes the flyer and just starts showing everybody in the circle because at that point, they're all just kind of surrounding them. Lauren and this other dude are debating on what they're going to do with them. And Helly takes that opportunity to just be like, you know what? Look at her. Here. Have you seen her? Do you know who she is? She used to run wellness. And Lauren busts through the circle, breaks it up. She says that they've decided that they're going to send word to Mr. Milchick that they're down here messing stuff up. And Mark pleads with them to not do that, that they're just trying to help. They're just trying to help someone who's like them because she says this is not a mammalian problem. And he's like, no, but it's an Innie problem. Think of it this way. How would you feel if you lost one of your baby goats? Wouldn't you go find it? And at that moment, Lauren begins to soften. She thinks about it. And in that context, she's able to see the value of Miss Casey. And that's when she begins to come clear about the fact that Miss Casey did come down there to run wellness sessions in their husbandry tanks. Gross. But regardless, as far as she knows and the rest of them know, she is retired like was communicated to all the teams. But she says that if he has reason to believe otherwise, that MN will not stand in their way. Okay, so
yeah,
husbandry tanks.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what these wellness session husbandry tanks look like. Like what?
I don't even think I want.
Yeah, and so I didn't look it up, but like, what does a husbandry tank look like to begin with? Is it like a situation
Well, guess what? I did look it up, and
okay,
no such thing. When I looked up husbandry tanks, the only thing that came up is the literal tanks that they collect sperm in for animals.
Oh, okay.
And then I looked up like husbandry enclosure, husbandry like
yeah,
whatever. And I guess really it would just be any place that they set aside for animal mating.
Okay, so since it's not actually a real thing, I was like, is that like they set the scene, they have a space where they like set the mood for the animals to get it on? And so in that case, would the husbandry tanks just be somewhere along the lines of what the wellness center ended up being, where there's like fake nature around, and that's why
Maybe.
they had her doing the wellness sessions there? And then they were like, well, this is getting in the way of our animal husbandry. Let's build her own wellness center.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I imagine her just like sitting on a bale of hay and there's like a water trough or something, and then they're doing the sessions there. You know what I mean? I was like, what does
Yeah.
this look like?
Yeah. I mean, I imagine if it is a tank, that maybe it is a little like dimly lit. So that would be the
Yeah.
same atmosphere as the wellness room. It's so weird to think of because I'm like, if there's not any active husbandry happening, then I guess it's not that weird. But also, like, do they clean it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, that didn't even occur to me
It did
that
to
she
me.
would be in there at the same time as the animals. Oh, that's
Well, not at the
terrible.
same time, but just like based on the look and the vibe of this crew, how often are they cleaning these tanks? What are we sitting on? What's been
I mean, I will say this. It looks like the space for the animals is very well kept. Just the people are not. So maybe,
That's
you
true.
know what I mean? You know, like how are
They
these
care
walls
more
white?
about the plants
Really?
and animals than they do themselves.
Right.
That's true. That crew, I'm not trying to be rude, but it just makes me think again of these Audi personas. And it's like, so do they just grab people who maybe are farming people who
Yes.
are, did,
Oh, yeah,
oh,
that was
okay,
my other question. I forgot
okay,
to write it. Yeah,
okay.
I was like, are these more people who don't leave Lumen because,
I did think that
or
too.
what do they do? What's their process? Do they have these people like shower and all of that stuff there before they send them home? If they do have Audis?
The only thing I could think is if they intentionally find people that are more agrarian in
Yeah.
their lifestyle or in their work. And so they've gone out and hired and recruited people who are used to just kind of being on farms and out in nature. And so they just come into work
Well,
looking very,
well, they have to tell them that that's the type of work they're going to be doing.
or they could just give them the dress code and say, like, wear casual attire, wear stuff you wouldn't mind getting dirty in.
Right, exactly. Why would I get dirty if I'm going to an office? Because they're still entering an office, right? So they have to at least tell them just,
If they're entering the same way,
ooh,
maybe they have a separate entrance for mammalians
okay,
nurturable. We
okay.
don't know.
Yeah, because I'm like, they told Mark that he's in the archives and his Lumen historian. So what do they tell them? Like, you work with the animals we test on?
I just feel like they probably have a different access point because I can't
Yeah.
imagine they're going to send these folks up the same elevator that they do, like,
Right.
you know?
That's why I was so confused. That's why I was so confused.
But like you said, it could also be that maybe they are the innies that don't leave Lumen and they just have housing there and they just go to work and live there and go home to their indoor housing. And
another reason why they're so weird.
that would actually, yeah, actually, that would explain a lot. That they ain't seen the sun. That explains the paleness. I don't know what the rashes are all about. I couldn't figure that out either. I mean, I guess working with animals a lot, that's going to happen maybe.
They look like they don't get much sleep.
No, eyes bloodshot. I was like, they are looking rough. Hair is tousled. And I know that didn't just happen in the first hour of the day.
Yeah.
Jeez, they just got here.
There is another Black employee here.
That's true. I did see that. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know which is the case. But again, I did get Hills Have Eyes, people under the stairs, Children of the Corn vibes from them, because it's just like, do y'all not socialize? Do y'all not get out? And again, maybe they have these jobs because they are like, I don't know how to interact with people, but I can interact with animals, and I just want to do stuff where I just am with animals, and I don't want anyone to judge me, type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, let's also address the fact that she has a desk on a hillside and a vending machine. And I just was like, what? Come on. Y'all couldn't even put that in a separate room? It's on the hillside?
The desk is so funny. Like, I saw your question about the vending machine. I was like, I guess they gotta have snacks too.
I mean,
they
that's
gotta
fine,
eat too.
But they couldn't put the vending machine in another room? Yeah.
Yeah, but also, why does she have a desk? And she not only has a desk, but then she has the other side one next to her with the computer. And she's in a rolly chair. So there's just a little patch of, people's at-home offices. If they have carpet, you get like the plastic to go down so that your rolly chair can roll. That's what it's like. There's a little patch of metal.
Who's she having meetings with? Who's sitting down at the desk?
Yeah, and what paperwork does she have to do?
Maybe head counts, vitals. I don't know.
Maybe.
The other thing I was going to say is I noticed there were other door and crawl space paths behind her desk. So I'm like, where do all these go?
So maybe there's multiple rooms, kind of like at zoos. Even if it's the same species, they don't always have
leave them together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, or is it much like the zoo? Is it like they bring them out here to graze, let them feed, and then they take them back to
they take them back there to sleep and stuff. Maybe. Yeah.
But there were doors for people to go into other spaces.
Right, because the people came out of everywhere.
Oh, I also just thought it was really sweet. The goat head guy who said that Ms. Casey told him that his Audi excelled at stargazing and that it meant a lot to him, which leads me to another theory that maybe actually then he would have to leave, right?
Oh, that's true. That answers the question. Yeah. Okay. So they definitely have Audis. Yeah. Okay. Unless more Lumen gaslighting. They just
they think they're looking at stars. Oh, that'd be so sad.
Yeah, they think they have Audis, but they don't. I mean, just like Miss Casey thinks she has an Audi, but she doesn't.
Maybe he used to be a stargazer and then fell off a cliff and died, and now
it's a half truth. Best way to lie.
Tragic. Okay, next.
Okay, so we get to the end of the day, and there's a lot going on after work in and around Lumen and here. But first, we see the end of Dylan and Gretchen's visitation. They have a hug. She says, I love you, and it's a little awkward. And she's like, I'm sorry, it's just habit, right? And then we're back in Gretchen and Dylan's home. And Gretchen is getting ready for her night shift at work, and she's wearing what looks like a security guard's uniform. And she's giving Dylan the rundown of things to remember. Merrick's ear thing. We'll come back to that. Remember the cookies for blah blah, whatever. And to me, she very noticeably does not say I love you when she leaves. But Dylan asks, how was it? And she only shares, it was good, weird good, but good. She doesn't give him any other information. Next, we see Natalie gabbing it up with Requiem, and Natalie is reading an excerpt from the You Are, and then she does some very heavy stroking of Requiem's ego, telling him how wonderful the book is. And then Devin comes in as she's headed out the door and is like, who is this person? And Natalie explains that Requiem's book has made its way to the severed floor, and Lumen would like Requiem to create an Innie version of it. And in true Lumen fashion, she does not really explain why. And our night in Kier continues with Devin then going to Mark's house to do a little art project in the basement. And it soon becomes clear why Mark was timing his entry into work work that morning. He plans to send a message to his Innie by printing an image onto his eyes with a handy dandy light box and some felt, and the message, who is alive.
Mark. Now, I know we're reaching for ideas, but you gonna burn your retinas.
Yeah, and immediately, the same question that Ragabi asks him later was just like, how is your Innie supposed to answer the question? He ain't got the same tools you do. Anyway, we're getting ahead of
Yes, we
ourselves.
are. Sorry.
So, back to Gretchen and Dylan. So, one, I immediately was like, oh, dang, even with the well-paying Lumen job, Gretchen still needs to work a night
That was a
job.
good observation. Yeah.
And it took me back to your theory about somebody being sick. The eardrops that Dylan is supposed to remember to give Merrick. I was like, okay, this kid being sick theory is making a little more sense to me. Maybe there's something going on that even with the Lumen job, they really need
the money.
Thing that they can get, and maybe he's got some recurring illness that is driving that.
Yeah, didn't even think about the fact that it's like, wait, in addition to his job that's supposed to be a good paying job,
right,
which does make me question a little bit, going back to race in the workplace, is Dylan getting the best possible salary?
Yeah, he's probably not making what his peers are making.
I know he's the newest, but at the same time,
he's the newest, but he's also one of their highest performing.
That's true. That is true. Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
As we know, that doesn't always equal the highest pay.
Doesn't.
For us.
Sadly. I wasn't trying to go back there, but I did. I was like, no, wait a minute.
I mean, it's the theme of the episode, clearly.
It is. You're right. They want us to think. They want us to go there. That is a good catch that you make about her not saying I love you to his outie.
Yeah, so that was my new revelation, right? To bring us back, circle back to the conversation we were having, right?
Because she straight up said habit, as in every time we do this, I say I love you.
Right. We just say, oh, I love you and bye, right? And then she didn't say that. So I was like, oh, they leave feeling happy and like, oh, that was better than expected, right? And then she doesn't share it with Dylan. Like she wants to keep it for herself, even if it's just for a little bit longer. I have to tell you eventually, but for now it's mine. And it really makes me think whether it's, oh, this is exciting because I've never seen this from you, or this is exciting because it's like when we first started, when we first started dating, that's what it felt like. And the I love you came so easily, and then she didn't do it when she got home.
Yikes. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Oof. I'm like, there's trouble there.
It was also weird to watch outie Dylan, number one, just so checked out because she's trying to get him to remember to do this and this and this. And he's just like, She got to tell him how to cut up cookies out of a tube and put them in the oven. Not hard to do. And just basically like having to parent another child, right? Like it had that kind of vibe of like, I've got 3 kids and a big kid. That's not so fun in a marriage. And I know there are lots of marriages that go that direction where the partner doesn't step up and it's like, I have to parent an adult along with kids, and that's a lot.
I
don't know if I had much else to dive into with that other than it does present multiple issues because Innie Dylan is going to try to work up more time with outie wife, and I'm sure she's not going to say no to more time with him. Okay, going back to that scene. Did you notice the old tech is throwing me off in this show? The old cars, the old tech, and yet there are modern things that show up, modern devices that I'm like, well, what are we? Where are we? What reality are we in? Because when they got to Dylan's house and they showed that TV, number one, another old cartoon their kids are watching. And I was like, that's Danger Mouse. I know that. I know that off the rip. And Danger Mouse is an old cartoon. It was old when I watched it as a kid. How are these kids watching it present day? And then I noticed the TV and the remote that was up there. I was like, this is a TV I would have grown up with in the 80s.
It makes me think 2 things. It makes me think like the TV show makes me think of how like sometimes real rural areas get things later.
True.
Because they are like, here is like middle of nowhere. But then also it makes me think that Lumen must tell its employees to not like flaunt their wealth that they're getting from them, because like Helena later has like a modern cell phone, right?
That was what threw me. I was like, okay, now I'm really confused.
Right. We've talked about this. Like, why do all of these people have such broke down cars? Not just that they're old cars, right? But that even if, let's say, this was set in the 80s, they're bad, beat up, broke down cars. They're not even nice cars for the
Right.
80s. So,
Right.
like, why? Why when this is supposed to be a really well paying job?
To make your point, later on when we see Helena get picked up, she is in an old car as well, but it is clearly well kept. It's clean, it's polished. Like it looks like one of those old cars that car collectors have, right? Like this is a nice car, but clearly from a different time period.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to Rickon's book and Natalie Kaylin, who has now made her way to Devin and Rickon's.
Lord.
This girl is working. They are making these Black folks work. They're putting in work.
Yeah, they just do so much after hours. They have so much after hours work. Like Milchick was just working for so long that night, and now here she is in the evening. She's not done with work, and she still has the board. She still has that earpiece on.
Yep. Rickon, so easily swayed, so easily impressed.
Oh my God.
I don't even want to think about what was said before Devin got there to get him so on board. This is the man who has questioned Mark at every turn about being severed, about his choice to be severed. And all it took was one lady, one pretty lady from Lumen talking so highly about his writing.
Stroking that ego.
He's like, I'm in. Yeah, I'll write a book for you. Sure. Yep. What do you want it to say? Cool. You don't have no questions, Rickon?
Right.
You don't think it's sus or weird? He didn't question it at all. And Devin literally is sitting there like,
what the heck?
Okay, really? Oh, right. My babe, look who's here. Oh, she thinks my words and my writing is so poetic and
right.
And I'm glad Devin was wise enough, and we'll get to it when her and Mark talk, but even in that moment was wise enough to be like, you know what? I'm not even gonna.
Yeah, she's like, I can't.
Fine.
Whatever.
I can't even sit and begin to tell you all the reasons why this is terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, I did put in here notes wise. Do you think that this is going to be the values 9, how I let Cure in?
Oh.
Like, do you think that they'll take his rewritten version and turn it into
and make it that?
Or maybe
I didn't even think about that, but just the excerpt of the book that we got, getting ahead of things a little bit, I don't see how that could be turned in. Like I feel like maybe they get a version of the UUR, but then later on
maybe
he gets tapped to write something completely different, because I don't think tweaks to this would turn into that.
Do you think that they're really going to produce it and give it to the Innies? Because here's my other question.
Yeah.
MDR has read that, at least Mark and Dylan have read that book cover to cover and have it memorized.
Yeah.
They will
That was
know
my thought too. I don't think
different.
they'll actually give it to them, or they'll give it to the other departments for some reason. But I don't see that. I don't know what the end game is yet.
Because I'm just trying to figure out, is this just her way into buttering him up to kind of try to like divide and conquer? Because they already have Devin's number, right? Beardy was like, she seems a little uppity and da-da-da. So they probably know they can't get in with her.
Yeah, I think it's just a way for her to get some more surveillance in. Yeah.
Okay. So back at Lumen, Milchick is finishing up some of his mysterious work at his computer. But before leaving, he takes one last look at those recanonicalized Kier portraits and decides to put them away where they belong, in the furthest corner of the backest room of the storage room. So he takes and puts them back in the box and puts them up top, but he can't quite push it all the way back. He tries turning it around. It still doesn't quite fit all the way flush with the wall, but he leaves it as is and just is like, and moves along. So after that, we go outside and we see that Helena is leaving the building. She's headed down to her car. And as she gets there, she looks up to see Miss Cowbell standing in the parking lot at her car, waiting for her. And Miss Cowbell has apparently decided that she does want to come back, but she says that if she does have certain demands. 1, she gets to keep running the severed floor, and more specifically MDR. And 2, Milchick's gotta go. He just gotta go. Can't be him and me. Gotta be me. So Helena then lets Miss Cowbell know that her ego may be getting the best of her, but in the end, she decides to call Natalie and check to see if the board is available for the two of them to talk. So she says, let's go back inside. So as they head back to Lumen to take the call, Cowbell suddenly stops and she's looking up towards Helly and her weird stoic looking driver. And she appears to be a little bit frightened by this guy's presence and then promptly turns around, gets in the car and drives off. Not just drives off, speeds away like she's wont to do.
Speeds away. I mean, can she drive at a normal speed?
I don't think
Have we?
so.
We've never seen it. Maybe she just lead footed.
So
yeah. So
this scene, I have to say, I couldn't quite get a handle on this scene. I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's a power play standoff moment, but I was just like, Harmony's approach, like, does she really think that's going to give her the upper hand? I don't know what she was thinking with this approach.
I mean, I think she still is thinking when Helena was gassing her up and when the job was first offered to her, I think she is believing that and thinking like they need me.
Right.
And then Helena quickly lets her know like, we don't need you as much as we told you we do.
Right.
Well, that was just what we were saying then, but we don't. And I love that she says, when she said, I think you've overestimated your contributions and underestimated your blessings. I said, ooh, okay.
And she said it with the straightest face, no hint of irony. But I did love Harmony's comeback where she was like, I built myself up in this. I wasn't born into it. And I was just like, ooh, bars. Ooh. There were a few things that I noticed. Number one, going back to the driver car guy, I did notice when Helena came down and then saw Miss Cowbell, and then the driver saw Cowbell, there looked like a recognition on his face. And I was just like, wait, who, how, what? Do they know each other? What's going on? Who is this man and who is he to her and vice versa?
Yeah, so many questions.
Yes.
Let's see. First I want to say in Miss Cowbell reveals that, she thinks it's really important that she oversee Mark finishing up Cold Harbor. So I was like, wait a minute. So Cold Harbor did roll over from the previous quarter, because how else would Cowbell know about it? She's been gone since we thought he'd started it. True. So I still don't know how the files and the carrying over and all of that works. I just don't.
So here's my, because when you said that, I was like, okay, here's my guess or my wondering. Maybe they get a set of files and they all have different quarterly deadlines. So they can work on the files a little bit at a time, but it's like, but this file is going to be due at the end of this quarter. This file will be due at the next quarter. And maybe each day they get to work a little on each file until their due date.
They can just choose which one they work on.
Or the system chooses for them. I don't know.
That answers because we were like, he already got to 68% in 3 days?
Yeah.
But no, he's been working on it for
longer than that. Yeah. Either way, we now know at least that they have files that they work on that may be due later. Yeah. Okay. Cowbell knows clearly that Mark's Innie has witnessed her in his Audi's life. How does she think if she comes back to running the severed floor that he's going to handle her being there? Right.
Right. And then that's going to help him focus on his job enough to finish Cold Harbor if it's so important. Yeah. I don't know. It's silly.
It is. I'm like, you're not thinking this through. They cannot let you back in. You have blown up your spot. So no, you can't come back. Yeah. I don't care how important you think you are. Maybe you are, but you messed this up. You blew your cover being weird. Yeah. So sorry, not sorry. I think that was the other thing too, was like, did she not notice this guy until she got up close and saw him? Yeah, that's not at a distance. Maybe she was so focused on Helly that she didn't even really look at who was there with her.
She saw a figure and didn't see his face until she got close enough, and it definitely, like you said, definitely seems like they know each other. And I was like, does she know him, or she knows who he used to be? Like, was he someone who has been turned into just Helly's driver? And then it definitely seemed like she felt like if she goes in there with right now, she's not coming back out.
Right. Huh.
Especially since we have had that ongoing recurring question of like, okay, was she severed at one point? She still has a chip and can be turned on at any point.
Right.
Maybe she's afraid that if she goes in, if this is a trap, they're going to do something. And seeing him was a signal of that. So maybe she knows it has already happened to him.
Do you think that this guy is someone significant to her? Okay, here's my wild theory. So we know that there was Harmony Cowbell and Mrs. Selvig, and they were And I always thought it was interesting. It was Miss Cowbell and Mrs. Selvig.
And she talked about her late husband.
That is her late husband.
Oh.
And that's what freaked her the F out.
Maybe.
Might not be, but that was the first thing I thought was like seeing a ghost. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not,
Oh, I maybe, ooh, and I keep getting taken back to the line that we hear in the trailer that you're not going to get the fairy tale happy ending that you thought. Maybe it's because it's already happened to her husband. He's dead and they have reanimated him
reanimated him.
to use for just lumen purposes. And
Uh-huh.
doesn't matter, even if you have the opportunity to interact with this version of him, you're not going to get your version of him back.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know. That might not be it, but that was what I thought. Cause I immediately was like, does he look like the age of someone that might be married to her? Maybe,
Yeah, I
possibly.
couldn't.
He
Maybe.
definitely was an
No.
older gentleman, but I couldn't tell how much older he might
Yeah.
be. And we still haven't quite gotten a grasp on how old Harmony is either, just based on the look of Patricia Arquette versus like the years that we've
The
seen on this stuff. It's
timeline.
like, but she
Yeah.
don't look that old.
She
Like,
doesn't look as old as the
right.
timeline. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, but I did think that. So I don't know, might not be it at all. But it was the recognition on his face to her and her back to him.
Oh, they know each other. Yeah. Related to that kind of sorta. I was like, does Helena just emerge from the elevator, then go straight up to the executive floor and keep working? Because she's there very late.
Uh-huh.
But then that brought me to another question
Mm.
where I said I hadn't been considering the Helly v. Helena debate.
Uh,
But I was like, okay, so does she come out and she goes up to work on other things? Or does she come out and she goes up
to report.
to review the tapes from the day to catch up because it is Helly that she's letting in? And she's like, she needs to go up and review the day's tapes to make sure Helly hasn't
Hell
blown
is
anything up
staying on
yet.
track. Yeah,
I don't know.
could. Yeah. Yeah, it could go either way. She could be reporting back like here's the intel for the day. Here's what they've told
Mm-hmm.
me in secret where we may not have areas or detection or whatever. Here's what we experienced. Could be logging that or like you said could be reviewing tapes to be like okay, what the heck happened?
Let's go back up to Milchek because we didn't talk about Milchek in this section.
Yes.
So Milchek's computer. So he sees two screens when we see him in the computer, right?
Yeah.
The first page of it is a management control panel.
Mm-hmm.
And it says main level, and then there's personnel listings, and there's ID numbers.
Right.
And then different things are toggled on and off. And on the right side, each personnel has like a key and a lock, and it looks like the fourth person, whoever it is locked.
Locked. Yes.
And then the bottom has personnel administration control panel help. So there was a little bit of an Easter egg. If you're not aware, on LinkedIn, there is a Lumen Industries page.
Oh.
And they released the new MDR team's ID badges.
Oh.
They're not their blue badges, but they're Lumen badges.
Right.
And I have also seen some floating around on like Instagram or whatever of I think of Mark. I'm not sure who else if they've shown all of them yet, but I looked that up immediately to see if we could match ID numbers, but the ID number that's on their badges are much shorter than these.
Okay, so here's what I can tell you because I went digging.
Mm-hmm.
I do have them.
Okay.
First thing when I saw this shot, I was kind of like, okay, I'm almost certain it's the MDR team just because there's 4 of them, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee anything.
Yeah.
And then I looked at each of the ID numbers and I could tell based on the length of them that like, I'm going to say the newest number is the newest person and the shorter ID is going to be the oldest person there. So I'm going to say that's Helly, Dylan, Mark, Irving is my guess. But then I was like, okay, well, wait, let's clarify because I know where we've seen these ID numbers before. We saw them when Dylan did the OTC and he had to pull each of their names over and it lists, you can't see it, but it lists each of them. Now, here's what's interesting. We do get confirmation that the top number is Helly 109-827-2938. The second one is Mark 112-954-1004.
Okay.
But what's interesting is I thought the last one would be Irving, but number 3 is Irving, 764-523-2236. So I was like, okay.
Oh,
who's number?
Wait, that's not on there.
Yeah, it is. Isn't it the third one?
The number that's on here is 748-918-2160.
Oh, so maybe that's Dylan's number. That might be Dylan's number because Irving is listed as this. But what was confusing to me was the 6 number because I was like, that's not one of the ones that's on the OTC listing. And I was like, so either that's Dylan's number, but that would make sense because it'd be out of sequence from Irving's number. So then I was like, one of two things is possible when I thought that was the same number, which is oh, they plan on keeping Dylan because he's being compliant and firing the rest when Cold Harbor is done, or Irving's number has been resequenced based on a possible reset of his chip. But that still wouldn't make sense because I think the ID numbers are assigned based on their chip ID. So that was the part that I couldn't figure out. But now if you're saying that the bottom two are completely unknown,
they're unknown.
Unless seven,
right, and wouldn't
unless seven is Dylan.
Yeah.
Because
well, even if it was sequential, shouldn't Dylan be in the number 2 spot?
Dylan should be in the number 2 spot. That's true.
Yeah.
So I don't know now.
I don't know. Yeah, but I was like, who are these people? Okay, so but we know for sure number 1 is Helly and number 2 is Mark based on that. But yeah, what are these other numbers? When you were reading it off, I was like, that's not this number.
I was like, oh, because I just saw that it started with a 7, and I was like, oh yeah, that's Irving's number 2. Now, unless that's a continuity error and they just forgot, but they're pretty on it with this kind of stuff. So I'd be surprised. So yeah, so that was what I got from that. So
screen. It's like, yeah, who is locked? Yeah, who is locked? Yeah. So then the next screen we see before he gets up and ends for the day is the administration control panel listing one user, executive drawer system, active surveillance source list. And we see there's active source, there's a term, a log, a CMR, another log, and each one has that prefix, then -L, -R, -O1, -O2, -O3. Some of them have O4, some of them have O5. What he unchecked was log R. I don't know what that means, but he unclicked it and then he finished for the day. But yeah, mysterious stuff happening.
I couldn't quite figure out the security panel screen. Like clearly that's to check off which areas are being surveilled or what surveillance access is being used.
Yeah, and then one thing is currently checked is SRC1 under the active source term. I don't know what that means either.
Yeah, because it's just like active surveillance source list. So I'm like, again, I don't know what source it is. The only thing I can think is maybe he unchecked his actual computer because we know that can be used as a surveillance system.
Maybe.
Like I'm done for the day.
Like
I don't need
this camera.
Yeah. CMR, SRC, don't know what any of that means. But clearly they're all like little surveillance sources. Where they are and what they go to, don't know. But it just clarifies, as we already said, that they are still surveilling them and they are still watching them, and none of that has changed. Wouldn't it make sense to make the security room his little back office area inside of his office? Because wouldn't it be a lot harder for anyone to get access there versus just putting it out in the halls? I mean, I don't know that that's where it is now, but
yeah. Speaking of the storage closet,
I was going to say, yeah.
What is behind
what's
that
up there?
Box?
Do you know what I thought
What's
of
up there?
This was another thing that brought me back to the pilot. Remember in the pilot, the kind of vent area that Helly got up into that was up above in the walls, where she like went and discovered whatever that secret room was. I can't remember now. It's been so long since we've done the pilot, but it made me think, is that another like passageway area up there that maybe he doesn't know about, but Cowbell might have known about?
Oh, see, I was thinking it was going to be some kind of secret file or something.
Oh, could be.
But whatever it is, he didn't linger on it long enough for me. I was like, come on, Milkshake.
It would be interesting if it was some secret file from Cowbell that she maybe left or didn't mean to leave. I don't know. Or do you think it's even Cowbell's? Do you think it's somebody else's secret, something stashed up there?
Oh, I was thinking it was something tied to Cowbell because she got ushered out of there really quickly.
So quickly, yeah. And we're definitely going to see it come back because the way they did that fade out transition on that box, it's like, remember the box? Yes. It's like, I know what you're doing. All right.
Well, okay. Home stretch. So during all of this Helena and Cowbell drama, we did see that Audi Mark drives to a remote location. I couldn't remember if this is what the greenhouse looks like, where if he went back to where Petey was staying, or if it was just some random place. But anyway, he needs to try out the light box situation, right? So he begins to blind himself so that he can see this message and print it, and he's counting to try to see if he can get it to last long enough, which it needs to be at least 2 minutes and 18 seconds to be exact. And while he's trying this, boom, out pops Ragabi. And she demands to be let into the car. She's like, unlock this car, let me in. Mark is
so aggressive.
Reluctantly allows her in. Yeah, she's so aggressive. I love her. And I love that she's like, are you trying this because this something on your computer said this was a good idea? And he's like, well, yeah. But Ragabi explains that this is not going to work because when you enter the severance floor, there's a switch that briefly dilates your pupils, so any images would be reset, and also he could permanently blind himself. It's a dumb idea. Ragabi then reveals that she knows about what happened with the OTC, and Mark is like, yeah, my sister talked to my Innie. And Ragabi inquires if his Innie told Devin that his wife is alive, and Mark would point blank ask if it's true. Ragabi confirms that she was alive the last time she saw her. So Mark is understandably shaken by this confirmation, and he steps out of the car to compose himself. He looks like he might throw up, and Ragabi tells him, like, look, the only way to communicate with your Innie is to get reintegrated. And she starts to try to explain why she can do it better now, and Mark agrees without hesitation. This time it's different. He needs to see his wife. So then they go back to Mark's house, and we see that Ragabi is preparing all of her instruments that were previously at Gans College. They're now in Mark's basement. And she explains that the severance process split his consciousness along these 5 brain waves, and each node that she's connecting to his head is going to read 2 waves on each like path. So there's delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma. And she can show him his wave activity, and on the screen you see that there are 2 separate lines, but the process is going to line them up. So at first Ragabi starts cranking up the dial, and it's too much too fast. We see Mark's hand shaking, and she's like, oh shit. She brings it back down, and then she dials it. She starts asking a series of questions, very reminiscent of the questions that we see the Innies get in the beginning, but it's more detailed. And she starts slowly turning this dial up and up and up as she's asking these questions. So here are the questions. I didn't write the answers because the important part is when he starts
the question,
yeah. Right. So she asks, who am I? Referring to herself. Where are we? What was your mother's name? What was her eye color? Did you love her? Name a dam. What does MDR stand for? And he can't answer this. Okay, still severed. He doesn't know what this is. Name something for which you feel shame. Why? Follow-up question to that. Where were you born? This is the first question that he can't answer that he should be able to. What month is it? To which he responds, you mean what quarter? Ooh. And then the last question is, what is your first memory? So during this second to last question, what month is it? Mark is visibly more and more confused. And then during the final question, we begin to get that PD-esque reintegrating flashes between where Mark currently is and where he was when his Innie, when he was his Innie on his first day, severed on that familiar table. And we end with the flashes quickening, and then we're seeing Outie Mark on the Innie table, and then Innie Mark on the table, and then back and forth. Then we hear Petey's voice through the speaker box saying, hey there, you on the table? Who are you? And I screamed at the TV. I said, yes, we're doing this. Oh, it's about to get crazy. It's about to get so fun.
Okay, let's discuss. Did you think they were gonna get here this fast?
No, of course not.
I was like, we've got at least, like, we've been flirting clearly the idea of integration. They've been hinting reintegration.
Yeah.
They've been hinting at it for the past few episodes. It's coming. We know it's coming. But I was like, shoot, we're already?
Yeah.
We're already reintegrating? Right. It's episode 3.
Right.
We got 7 more episodes, and he's gonna be reintegrated that whole time?
Yes.
How is this gonna go?
Well, how is this gonna go? We're gonna get to see what it's like to be going through reintegration while you are on the severed floor with other people who are severed. And I hope,
so now we got 2 double agents potentially.
Wait. I hope we get to have in this, there's a reason to have flashbacks to Petey's last week at Lumen that we wanted in the first season.
Oh, you're right.
Because he was reintegrated for a week before he left.
Okay, this makes sense to me because I feel like there was something either in the promo material or maybe just them promoting that showed Yul Vasquez, who plays Petey. And I was like, so he's going to be in this season? Is he coming back?
In it.
And this makes sense. They have to show that.
I want it. I want it so badly.
Because there's no other reason why he would come back.
Oh, I'm so
My
excited.
brain is
Oh, I'm
unhinging.
so excited.
Every
This
episode.
the end of this was like being at the last moments when you are climbing up that the roller coaster,
Yes.
right? And you know you're about
It's
to
like big
start
drop
and
coming.
get the drop.
Oh, I see it. Big drop
Oh,
coming.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
But this is the kind of stuff that you see at the end of a season. This is the beginning. What?
Yep.
What are y'all
So
doing to me?
how much more craziness are we going to get? Oh my gosh, so much.
And like you said, when we were talking about the trailer and how they really don't show that much of the end as much as the beginning, it makes sense now why we got so much, because all of it's happening at the top of the season. We don't know what the heck to expect later in the season. The only thing we haven't seen yet, again, is that Cowbell scene, the ice place, the snow place they go to.
Yeah.
I don't know what else, but like we have seen a good deal of what was in those opening trailers.
What was in that? Yeah.
And it's episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I couldn't believe we were already reintegrating Mark. Okay. I was going to try to look up an oscilloscope and what it does. When she mentioned it, I didn't get to it. And I'm sure it's sciencey and my brain probably wouldn't have been able to comprehend it.
Yeah,
anyway.
I was like, I'm going to just trust that these are the
that the science is right. Yeah, I'm sure y'all got it right. However this works. Magnets, I don't know, magnetic pulses, waves, brain waves.
Yeah, I was like, it seems like they're vibrating. The consciousness is back together. They're shaking them.
Well, it's weird because she used salt on that little table that was shaking everything. But I know that that's attracting to a certain frequency. I don't know why salt is the thing that may gravitate to certain. I don't know. That's the part I was like,
it's something about
I can understand it.
Conductive or something.
Something like that. Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, Ragabi tells Mark, I can get it right now. I've been practicing and I know I can do it better on you than I did on Petey. Here's what's interesting. When we were talking about it season 1 and Petey's reintegration, and we kept saying, well, it's because he didn't do the aftercare that Ragabi said that he needed to do. But now it seems like, no, she just messed it up. She didn't do it right. Or maybe it's both. I don't know. But the fact that she had to be like, no.
I was, the aftercare piece of it made me feel like there must have been something surgical. But she didn't do anything surgical to Mark. So I don't know. And or is the aftercare, because she did say he didn't follow his aftercare and she said something about staying calm. I think we talked about maybe his was hard to keep up with because he was still going to Lumen. So I worry about if maybe some of it is more like no excitement, nothing crazy, no trying
good
to
luck with that.
So like right. How do you do that if we toyed with the idea that like maybe previously she has only reintegrated people who are already retired, not working
that's
there.
right.
Then the piece that was hard was that Petey was still there, but I don't know.
Here's my concern is, I'm like, reintegration seems like it's a two-pronged thing. I think it's getting the waves on the same line, like getting the two waves to merge, but then it's also a matter of like retaining the waves and keeping them from re-separating, because I think the natural inclination is going to be for them to want to separate back.
Yes.
So how do you keep them from doing that?
Right. And what is going to happen when his chip goes clicky clicky every day when he's going?
That was another. I was like, is it that it just shifts the priority of your consciousness to where now this guy is like the main point of view, but we still have access to this other point of view, and then it switches back?
Right. Yeah. So is he going to go down and he's still going to be outie front facing, or is it now going to be we have Innie Mark suddenly getting flashes of the outside,
right,
and he's unsure why?
Right. And then how's he going to explain? Oh God. Oh no. I just see bad things. Cause like,
oh man,
how do you explain to your team? Number one, do you explain to your team? How do you keep it to yourself?
Right. And it's like, it's one thing to be aware of something and hide it from people. It's another thing entirely for him to be experiencing it and not knowing what he's experiencing and then try to explain it away when he doesn't even know what it is himself. You know what I mean? So I can imagine like somebody asking him what's wrong. Like he's not going to know to be like, oh, I'm okay. He's probably going to be like, I don't know. It's the F is wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I feel funny. You know what I mean?
It also makes me nervous too, the shaky hand thing that happened to him. It's like, again, looking at what happened with Petey and his body just started like unhinging. Oh, Mark, I know you want to see your wife, but
Right. That piece does make it seem like a
I
whoops.
hope it was just a whoops. But
Yeah, but like this is super important. Why are we whoopsing? Why you crank it all the way up to level 16 right
yeah,
away?
honestly, when she did that, I was like, well, that was dumb. Why would you
Yeah.
start at the highest level? Everybody knows you work up. You don't just start at 10.
He said, "Oh, what?
This is why we got bodies dropping in the middle of convenience stores. Oh, Lord.
Oh my goodness!" But yeah.
I'm very nervous for Mark. I'm very nervous. I mean, Petey clearly got away with it for a week at least.
Ooh, and the two people who actually believe the idea of reintegration are gone.
Oh,
Because
true.
so I wonder if Milchek watching is going to catch on to the same things that
Mm,
Cowbell caught
started
on with
catching on to with
Petey.
Petey. You know what? Another thought or theory that I had is that Dylan's going to find out about reintegration and he's going to want it so that his
Mm,
Innie can access his Audie's wife more or
yeah,
family or whatever. I was like, oh, that's
yeah.
going to be bad news. I don't know why, but I just feel like that's going to be bad news because Audie Dylan would have to be on board to some degree, right? There's no way that any Dylan can access reintegration without his Audie
No,
knowing.
because Ragabi can't get back into Lumen. You know what I mean? If she could sneak in and do the procedure there, she probably would, but she can't.
Yeah. But I did have that thought. Oh, this just blows everything up. This just opens so many doors.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. And then the next episode is called Woe's Hollow. And you know stuff be having double meanings. Like it might actually be some weird part of Lumen, but also somebody's gonna be sad about something.
Yeah, because
uh,
woe is one of the
that's true.
that's one of the tempers, right?
One of
One
the
of the four,
tempers, yes.
right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
You want to ask your other questions, or are we good there?
you know I'm missing stuff. What did I miss?
You said, how did Ragabi find Mark and all that?
Oh yeah. How did she know where he was?
She been surveilling him, right?
She has to be.
I think
But
so
how?
because
Like, does she have a tracker on him somehow? Because it was one thing with the phone and he had the phone and she just kept calling.
yeah,
But I'm like, she knew where he was. She had all her
yeah,
stuff ready to go to
yeah.
reintegrate.
Ooh, that makes me think maybe it was the greenhouse.
Mm,
Maybe she was there because, like, from the time where she murdered
yeah.
Grainer. Oh, that's by the way, I yelled at the TV when she said, "Unlock this door," and I said, "No, you're a murderer. Don't let her in." Like, Mark has no reason to trust Ragabi. Like, what the heck?
I'm sorry.
After
I
what
saw you
he's seen?
bludgeon a man to death. No thanks. I
Yeah.
don't think I want you
Um,
in my car.
But yeah, so from the time that incident happened at Gans and she had to like relocate, where has she been with all of that stuff? It has to be stored somewhere. It's not like she can pack it
True.
up and just go. So I wonder if maybe that was the greenhouse and
Maybe
she was
so. That would
there and
explain
she
her
heard
being
him pull
there.
up.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would explain that. Cause I was like, is she following him? And
Yeah.
then to add to that question, she said she heard about the OTC and she knew
Got people
about
on the
Mark's wife.
inside.
What is her,
Got
what
people on the inside.
clearly must,
Still,
clearly
yeah.
must. Cause
So
I
it's
mean,
like, because she
unless,
was the head of whatever she was important there. So maybe she still has underlings that are loyal to her.
true. So I'm like, either she's got people watching them or him specifically, or she knew somebody who would have been at that Lumen Gala who saw what happened
Mm-hmm.
with Helena and knew like, OTC
Yeah.
happened.
Right.
I don't know, but clearly she's got eyes and ears on the inside. So he must not be the
Yeah.
only one reintegrated floating around up in there.
Right.
And yeah, and then knowing about Gemma and the fact that she said she was alive when I last saw her. Alive or Lumen alive?
Right. Lumen alive or alive alive? Because right now we're not thinking that just because Miss Casey is alive means you gonna get
Gemma is
Gemma back.
alive.
It's not looking hopeful for that. And
Mm-mm.
also, how long ago was that? Right?
Right.
Because she been gone, she's been fired or let go or left, retired, whatever, for a while.
Yeah.
So Mark, that doesn't mean she's alive right now.
Or alive in what way? Because that would have been my question. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
last time you saw her, she was alive. How? Doing what? Where was
Mm-hmm.
she?
Yeah.
What do you know about her? Because if I'm about to mash my brain that's already been split up, I need to know what I'm getting into.
Right.
Do you just readily have access to the memories of your alter?
I don't think
Or
so.
do you have to like work to get access to them?
I mean, based on what we saw Petey going through, I think it's not an easy process. You know, I don't,
Right.
maybe they will get there at some
So I'm like,
point.
is it a train your brain type of thing? Or do you just always, will it always be sporadic and you don't have no control when you get flashes?
I think the hope is that at some point it's going to fully
Regulate out.
regulate out so that
Okay.
you actually have your timeline correct memories, right? So you know, like, oh, on this day I went in, and then when I got down there, this is what I did, and then it's just regular. And one of the things that PD was saying was that it's not sequential, but he was still going through the beginning phases of it. So I don't know if, we don't know if it always stays that way or if it's going to get sequential at some point.
You know what I realize makes it hard to make it sequential is the fact that the Innies have no sense of time or day.
Yeah.
So that F's with it even more, because maybe if they had access to calendars and knowing like it's this day, this month, this time of year, and not just quarters and hours of the day, yeah, that's going to make things a lot harder to resequence.
Yeah, that was really interesting when he was asked, do you know what month it is? And he says, do you mean what quarter? I was like, oh, they don't tell them what month they're in. Okay. And so for any Mark to know that he's worked there, or any of them to know how long they've worked there, it's just what they've been told. And now Innie Mark's timeline should no longer line up with Outie Mark's in that regard too, because they've been told that it's been 5 months longer. They at least know the day of the weeks, right? Because they know when they've experienced a weekend and stuff. They at least know that.
So do they get days of the week?
Maybe it's on the computer the day of that's what I'm saying. Maybe they at least get a day of the week, but they don't know like the month and the date.
Okay. Because that's the only way he would know it was a weekend, is if he knew it was a Monday.
Exactly.
Okay. Still not easy to line up time periods, but okay.
Yeah, not at all.
What an episode. This is gonna be so long. Whee!
It is gonna be long. Well, the full, I won't say completely uncut, but like more raw, more rough video versions go on our Patreon. So if you are interested in getting all of the ins and outs, even our confusions and corrections of ourselves that happen throughout these, feel free to join our Patreon at patreon.com/theuur. And you can join the Severed Floor as our paid membership tier for all of the extended cut stuff, but you can also be a free member and just get other extras. And if you want to discuss theories, ask us questions, make suggestions, follow us on the socials. We are on Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, Lemonade, at the UUR pod on all of the socials. Or you can also email us at theuurpod@gmail.com. And please, if you would be so kind as to rate and review and subscribe on whatever podcast app you are listening to us on, that would be greatly appreciated. And then we have an update for you guys. Just due to some personal scheduling conflicts, episode 4, Woe's Hollow, will be released a day later than our typical Tuesday release. So just make a mental note. If you're looking for us on Tuesday and you're like, oh no, where is it? We're coming on Wednesday. Okay.
Just give us a day.
Yeah, so you'll still have time to listen to it before episode 5 airs. Yeah, and with that.
All right, guys. Well, this has been the UUR. And remember, we don't abide such fripperies here.